to the June demo for the Society of West Coast Artists. My name is Jim Stinger, and I'm the president of the San Francisco chapter of SWA. And we are a membership and volunteer organization. So if you're not a member, if you've not volunteered, please consider doing so. You can go to our website, societyofwestcoastartists.com, and you'll find some application information there. We're always looking for volunteers, so if you're interested in helping us out, that would be very nice. And you can always let one of us know that you're willing to help out. So today, we have the privilege of Deborah Shea as our artist, and she is going to do blossoms in pastels. Deborah will take you on a journey of the pastels to create extraordinarily beautiful, colorful flowers reminiscent of O'Keeffe's abstract florals. Pastels are a wonderful medium with great control and only a small amount of binder agent, so pigments are truly vibrant. Deb will start with a little history, terms, and some basics of drawing. She will start with an underpainting and demonstrate how to layer the pastels to keep the beautiful colors clean and sharp. So I turn it over to Deb to show us that. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So pastels are a favorite medium of mine that I have worked with for probably 35 years now. And when I was about 9 years old, I went to an exhibit at the DeYoung Museum, and I was introduced to George O'Keeffe's paintings. And I remember how old I was because it was my 4th grade class with Miss Hanny. And so we went, and I couldn't really imagine anything as beautiful as a George O'Keeffe painting. My parents and my grandmother and my uncle were all people that were involved in the arts, artists themselves. And so growing up with that influence was terrific for me. We went to many museums and galleries in San Francisco where I grew up. I studied at Davis. Prior to that, prior to going to college, when I was in middle school, I did a summer program for art kids with Ruth Azawa. So I worked with her for about 3 months on several community projects, and she was a big influence on me because she was so famous at the time, and she was so down to earth and wonderful to work with, especially as a kid. And I knew who she was because she had taught some of the classes for my mother at San Francisco State College. And so my mother was quite like, wow, Ruth is your instructor. She was quite blown away by that. But anyway, so she was wonderful. And then when I went to Davis, I studied with Wayne Thiebaud, who is really just a wonderful, wonderful artist. There's just, he was so wonderful. He was a great professor as well. But he really taught me a lot about color. Color was something that he was very, very good with, and a technician. And so he greatly influenced how color could be used in a piece of art. And then for many years, I was a designer and an illustrator and a creative director in high tech and food and manufacturing, all different kinds of companies. And then in 2018, I decided to become a full-time artist. And I've never looked back and have enjoyed working as a full-time artist so tremendously. And pastels are my primary medium. I just love the way they feel. Their pigment is so exceptional. As Jim mentioned, there's a tiny bit of binding agent in a pastel. And so when you see that, it's probably almost 100% just pigment that is compressed with a tiny bit of gum arabic. And so there's nothing really like them in terms of the vibrancy of the color. They are a little bit tricky to work with when you first start out. You have to keep a lot of things in mind because it's a difficult medium in terms of being a little messy, and the dust can be an issue. So, but there's ways to mitigate that, and you get to just really explore how wonderful you can make your work. And so, working right now, I'm primarily doing floral pieces, large scale. For this demo today, I have a smaller 12 by 16 piece here that we're going to work on. And this is a large rose, which you can see I've started to do the sketch for. And it's a light sketch, not very much detail, for purposes of helping map out my underpainting. And so this is the image right here, you can see. And then I also have this up on a tablet so I can get a little bit more of the true colors. Oftentimes I'll sketch and take photos and rearrange stuff in Photoshop before I use it for my image, for my art. Although it's typically used as sort of a jumping off point, and a lot of it I make up. So it just depends, you know, on what I want to get out of the picture and what I think is succeeding. So one of the things I really stress when I work with my students is the composition of the piece. And so this is sort of one of the very most important elements of a piece of art, is your composition. And so with this rose, even though it's a sort of a centered image, you can see that there's a great dynamic here with the way that it's turned and the way that there's these outer petals are opening. And so I think that that is a beautiful sort of arc through the piece. And then you have all of this activity up here with the whorl of the rose opening up. And then these petals in these wonderful, curvy, beautiful, organic shapes. So this is an image that I could get behind and enjoy working on. And if you look at Georgia O'Keeffe's work, you can see two of the things that she always is using in her work is the organic line. She has a very sinuous, beautiful arcs and lines in her work. And then she loves the graduated tones as well. So within, you know, this, you can see, I've got a pencil here for pointing out stuff. These areas here where it's like kind of more peachy, and then there's more yellow, and then we get down into these reds. There's a lot of really glorious, beautiful graduated tones here. They're going to be really fun to work on. So when I look at something like this, I also really try to see how the rose is put together. So, you know, you've got your base down here and these different petals folding open. Where's their beginning? Where's their end? To kind of imagine almost that you're in a Bug's Life movie and you're like flying around this rose. I think it gives you a sense of the sculptural nature of the rose. So what you're trying to do is look at this as a very 3D object instead of a flat 2D object. And so that's one of the things with photos that you have to kind of watch out for, is that they're doing a lot of that 2D for you, 3D for you, I should say. And so for you as the artist, you have to kind of compensate for that and really, you know, of course, make it your own, but also work on, you know, placing color and line and intricacy in areas where you might not even see it in the photo, but you're sort of like thinking one step ahead, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So with this image, you can see how many different oranges we have. And what I'm going to be doing after my sketch, which I did to kind of save a little time here, I'm going to be starting with a underpainting. And the pastel underpainting is really kind of a shortcut. So it gives you a nice platform to build all the rest of your color. And so pastel, as we know, or as you don't know, but there's a lot of dust in pastel with layers and layers and layers. And a lot of times it's really easy to get all of that working into a big mush. And so what we want to do is try to keep it clean and sharp and really enhance the beautiful colors. So there is a way to go about that to kind of keep everything in line. And it's a building, like I said, it's a building process. So the underpainting is made with just regular alcohol and a brush and the pastel. And you're going to fill in very lightly with the pastel, and then with the brush, move it out. Again, with my sketch here, I've got an idea of where I want these different areas to be. And my sketch is helping me with that as a little roadmap. What I'm looking for when I do this too is sort of 3 or 4 tonalities. So again, tonality is a huge part of a successful art piece. You want to have mid-tones, dark tones, and light tones, right? And all the in between. So typically when I have a class with students, I make them do a value chart, which they usually hate, but it's so good because you learn to see your eye. It's all like developing your eye, what your eye is seeing. So you have them go from one color to another all through the middle. And it really helps you see all these stages that you blend together to make a strong piece. So a lot of times people, when they're first starting out with pastels, will be a little bit nervous about going too dark. Typically it's too dark. They don't want to go too dark. They're a little scared, but we want to really try to push all of that. So you start with your midtones, and then you're working down into your darker areas and up to your highlights. And highlights are kind of the last thing you add. I have students sometimes that like to add the highlights right away and thinking they're done with the drawing, but of course that's not really the case. And you want to have that all developed before you go ahead and you start putting in your lighter little touches here and there. So I'm going to just go through some of the materials here for you that I'm going to use. This is Art Guard, and Art Guard is a wonderful barrier cream. So I use this on my right hand. I don't wear gloves because they kind of bother me. I feel like I can't really get into the art the way that I want to when I have gloves on. But some people really like them. So it's kind of all up to you. I have some people that I know will actually tape their fingertips. But then again, I can't, I feel like I'm not really in contact with the paper that much. And so this stuff is like a heavy cream, and you just rub it into your hands and into your cuticles, where I primarily get a lot of my pastel dust. Now, the board that I'm using is a UArt board, and UArt, this one here is 600 grit, and you can get them like down in the 200s all the way up to 800, which is the one I usually use. And this is like a very, very fine sandpaper, very fine. And I really love this paper and this company. This has kind of been a game changer in terms of doing pastels. This paper has a wonderful quality to it of really gripping the pastel and really holding that beautiful color. Some papers, like a vellum type paper, it won't really work. Your pastel will kind of just slide off of it because it's got no tooth to it. So the tooth is the thing that really helps hold the pastel down. And this paper comes in different colors. It also comes in black, which is really fun to work with if you ever get a chance or want to explore that. But it's really my very favorite. And I typically get it in big rolls for my larger pieces. And then I will have it mounted onto gator board. And so it's very, very stiff and light and big. If you're trying to use just a piece of paper that large, it's just going to be a nightmare because it'll be curling and all kinds of problems. So this is the way that I found to do the larger pieces and really have it be successful. When I have a framer that does that for me. So the other thing we have here is I need an eraser. So this helps with my lines if I've gotten them too heavy. I don't really worry about it too much because there's going to be so much pastel on this. You're not really going to be able to see these lines, and you're not really going to worry about it. I have quite a few oranges I've selected. So typically when I have a piece, I'll pick out from my huge array of pastels, my colors, my huge trays that I have. And I've told my husband, it's not really hoarding if you use them all, right? But I do use a lot of pastels. And I just had a friend come in and look at my studio, and she said, how can you possibly need so many colors? And I said, sometimes it's not enough, So to me, it's just wonderful to explore all the pastels out there. But what I'll do when I start a piece is I'll pull out the colors I need typically. And for the purposes of an underpainting, you want to choose colors that are sort of mid-range, because when you put them down on the paper with the alcohol, they will darken quite a bit. And so there, you are going to have dark areas in a painting, but you kind of want to build those up. You don't want to maybe start with things that are too dark. So that's just my take on that. For pastels, it's really fun to try a whole bunch. This is a set that you can buy from Dakota Pastels, and you can get different colorways. This is the green, and they will send you an array of all these different kinds of pastels, so you can try them out. And some will be harder, some will be softer, some will have great reds or greens. They will have all these different qualities to them. And so that's a wonderful thing to try to explore. Yes, do you have a question? No, no, they're all different manufacturers. Yeah. So it's nice because they'll send you the set and then you can try it out before you commit to buying a whole set. Because good pastels, they're an investment. So you're going to need, don't go too cheap, because the cheap ones will have a lot of dust, a lot of filler. They won't have the pigment that you want to get. I was just in Paris and I bought some pastels that are called Rocher, and this is the Rocher right here. And these are made from a company, it's like 300 years old. And these pastels are the most expensive pastels I've ever bought. They're great though, I will say, but it was pretty funny, 20 bucks for this guy right here, but it's absolutely gorgeous. So I've been using it in tiny bits, trying not to use them up too much. I bought 2 sets when I was there. It was really fun. And so, yeah, so you kind of really want to explore different kinds to see what will work for you. And it's really fun. The other thing I use when I start a piece, I have these wipes, which are great for keeping your hands clean. If you're working on your piece, you want to try to think about working in one color, if possible, at a time. So let's say you're working on your greens and then you work on your oranges. You don't want to have green dust all over your fingers and drag that into the orange. That's kind of, just keeping your area pretty tidy and your hands tidy. Some pastel artists will work literally from one corner to another on a piece and then down. I can't do that. I need to kind of be working on the whole thing at one time. So typically when I work on my art, I will turn my palette around like this. And it's kind of good too, because you'll get different perspectives on your work this way. So I don't know, I'm sure there's some huge rule against that, but for me, it works. Yeah, I don't care. So anyway, let's see. I have pencils here that I'll be using on some of the tighter areas. But I'm going to start out with the larger pastels to do my underpainting. And I'll get to that in just a second, but I want to see, does anybody else have any questions?
When you did the sketch, what did you use for the sketch?
Just a graphite pencil. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the good
No, it's graphite, just because I'm doing it quick and, so again, your sketch is not a huge detailed, perfect sketch. It's really just to kind of map out. I try to see, where the generally large shapes are. So you can see like right here and right here. When I do the underpainting too, I'm not going to get like too noodly with that. Like I'm going to just, again, it's map. You'll be able to go in and work on areas a lot. That is going to come. A lot of times people want to start really getting really tight in there right in the beginning. And I have to tell people over and over again, we're just working big to small. That's the idea. So you've got this large thing and then you're going to be zoning in on the detail, and that will come soon enough. So any other questions?
The name of the company again, where you got the sample?
Dakota Pastels. Yeah. I have a handout that I can send out or make available. I should have brought them here, but I didn't know how much of an audience I was going to have. So, and that has all of the different materials I use that you can check out their websites. It's really fun if you can go try pastels in person, but unfortunately, there's not a lot of places that really have high-end pastels. A lot of it is pretty school grade, mid-grade, and you're just not going to get the same. It's like any medium, any kind of materials that you buy, you want to try to buy stuff that's going to give you what you want, So anyway, all right, so let me start here. And I'm just going to show you again on my printout here. So we have this big shape here. We have this big shape. This shape, again, I'm not going to get too noodly with this. I'm going to just do this probably as this lighter color here. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to fill in these areas here. This I probably won't do too much with just because it's so much tighter with the detail. And then map in some of the greens, and I'll probably use some blues here just because that's a nice complementary color to the orange to keep it a little interesting. So we're just going to go ahead and I'm going to work on the light colors first and then work to the darker ones because again, don't want to have the dark colors mess up the really beautiful oranges and stuff. And I love working with orange. It's just such a great color. And there's some pastels that are just absolutely beautiful with them. So what I'm going to do, let me just find.
So Deborah, just FYI,
Yeah.
we see a lot of your hand.
Oh, you see a lot of my head?
Yeah.
Oh, leaning over?
Yeah.
It's a good thing I just had my hair done, huh? Okay. I'll lean back. Thank you.
It's always the issue.
Yes, yes. Okay, so sometimes you'll have a lot of, if you have your pastels in a tray like I do, you get a lot of different color on there, just, they're kicking around and stuff. So you want to just sort of make sure that you don't have like greens or darker violets and stuff on these when you use them, because you don't want it to get smeared into the piece. So I'm going to start up here, and this area here, you can tell I'm using the broad side of this pastel. So there's like a pointy side and a broad side. So I'm using the broad side here to fill in just because it's a little faster. And this is going to be probably a little darker than what I'm doing here when I get it painted on. Let's see here. I feel like you're too far away. Were you going to zoom in more? Oh, you did. Sorry. I didn't see it. Okay. I'm looking at all these different things. Apologies. Okay. So this side over here has this. Oh, good. Okay. This side over here has a bit lighter oranges. So again, I'm kind of going mid-tone. And then as the rose comes open, the outer leaves, the outer petals are the lightest. And so that's what I'm going to be going for. What's this color here? It's a little brighter. Okay. So I'm going to just begin to lay this in, and then I'll go ahead and paint this part out, and you can see what I mean about an underpainting. And for smaller pieces like this, it's good to do. For the larger pieces I work on, and I work typically like 40 by 40, sometimes 40 by 60. It's kind of essential just because it's a lot of area to cover. I'm going to use a smaller brush. It's a lot of area to cover, and you can spend a lot of time kind of plowing on that color there, and it just takes a lot out of you before you even get to anything that has very much detail. You just are putting down a huge amount of pastel and dust to try to get those areas covered, so you can begin to do a little bit more of the detail work. So
What type of brush are you using?
these are called brights. I think they're called brights. Yeah. And I like these a lot because they're kind of stiff enough to give you a nice edge, and they're but they still have a little bit of a kind of a point to it. So I like them a lot. Okay, so you can see here I'm just kind of brushing this out like very casually. I'm not getting too worried about a lot of it. It doesn't have to be perfect at all.
So we have a question about what you're putting on your brush to wet it.
It's alcohol.
Alcohol.
Mm-hmm. And the reason that you use alcohol is it doesn't mess up the paper and it will dry really fast. So by the time that I go back to these other areas, this part I'm doing right now will be dry. And that way you're not going to worry too much then about, oh, you know, because you don't want to work on an area when it's wet. Because you know, it'll kind of gum up the pastel. So this is a way of just, see how nicely that's kind of just getting the base down.
Were you using a softer or hard pastel?
This is a pretty soft one. So I'm actually being a little bit more careful on this than I normally would be because, you know, people are watching. Well, I don't know. I'm sure people are screaming about technique somewhere in the world. Okay, so you can kind of see here how I'm doing this. And this kind of has this like really kind of watery color look to it, but that's going to go away as soon as I start putting more color down. Okay.
Excuse me, what is the proportion? Is it water and alcohol on the brush?
No, it's just alcohol. It's just rubbing alcohol that you get at the grocery store. This right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't put water on it because the water will mess up the paper. Okay, so down here, I'm going to do a big swath of this color. I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. My hovering. Okay. And this one is a little bit more yellow than that first one I used. And again, this is kind of like these unfolding petals here that are so pretty. Whoops. And the most, you know, you really want to, like I said, think about your composition and think about the image that you're using, you know, quite a bit. You can do sketches of it, you know, to kind of figure out your composition, what is an interesting angle to use. Because you can be the greatest technician in the world, but if your composition is boring or, you know, kind of weird, or you've got some stuff happening that's not quite right, you can never get over that. It's going to always like buying a house, you know, in a bad neighborhood or on a busy street. That's kind of it. You're never going to be able to like fix that. So it's important that you have that pretty mapped out. So this is a bigger brush here for a bigger area. And again, I'm just going to brush this out. And so I'm going to just pull it over in here even. Okay. Mhm.
you're working on your bigger pieces, do you use it on an easel then?
I have a large table that is a stand-up desk. And I have an easel on top of it. And I know some people use easels for pastels, but I just find like I get so many different colors and stuff, I can't, like I need room for them. So I have like an easel that sits on top of the desk. And then sometimes I even put a board on that and like a plywood type thing that my husband will maybe screw together everything. And then I can lean up my work on that. And then I have a lot of room up front for my pastels and pieces that I want to, my pastels, and then I can see my work. But it does have, a slant to it. So that's nice. This is a little bit harder, I think, to work flat, especially on a big piece. Because, you keep getting your head in the way of the camera. So anyway, so I'm working now, I'm getting this middle section down, and I'm working with a slightly darker orange, because this is a darker area inside. So you begin to see more of the shapes coming up here. See, that puts a lot more pigment quickly right there. That would be something that would be a lot of dust and be pretty messy if you were trying to just, use the piece and really filling that in. So at some point, the tooth, like I mentioned, the tooth of the paper is going to get filled. And then it's really hard to put in, any more shadowing or highlights or, variations in the color. So this kind of helps because that first layer there is just a lot lighter with this wash instead of a big thick layer of pastels. And you can see I'm leaving some areas here for where the highlights of the rose edges, the petal edges will be. Okay. I think I'm going to put in, let's see, this here. And the other thing is too, you can always like some of these areas here where I've left a little bit of space, that's for the highlights. And then I'll go back in with like a pencil to those areas and just sharpen that up. Because you'll have, hard edges with the flower, and then, sort of your softer edge. Okay, and got that pretty well, this one, okay. I'm gonna do just a little bit with my small brush right in the top part here. And this I am using a little more of a point.
When you say go back in with a pencil, is it a pastel pencil?
Yes, they are pastel pencils. Yeah, don't use the kind with wax, like a Derwent or Prismacolors. Those won't work. Yeah, and I'll talk about the pencils a little bit there too, as we get closer. There's some pretty nice pastel pencils that again have sort of different qualities to them. And, you know, you kind of have to see what's going to work for you. Typically, I'll fall in love with a product and I'll use it, and then I'll find something else that I love, and then I'll use that one. It's kind of like makeup or shampoo. You know, you're like, oh, I got to try this one. So that's kind of why I do it. Oh, yeah. Right. And then I think, do I need all those? And I'm like, yep, I do. I need all that stuff. And that's why you need to get a big studio at some point. It's really great. Okay, so I've got a little bit more down here. Okay, so I'm just going to do that. And that's probably going to be all that I do in the oranges. I'm going to do a little bit of stuff for the leaves. So roses are pretty complicated too, you know, and so you kind of have to give yourself a little bit of a break and not be too hard on yourself when you're working on roses, because they're complicated and they just have a lot of different stuff going on with them. They're really fun to do, but they definitely have a lot of folds and swirls and all that stuff. The other one that I do a lot of paintings, and I was just showing a couple people, are hydrangeas. And they really are fun to do, but boy, there's a lot of detail in them. So, you know, you really have to kind of, when you're starting out, kind of say, gosh, you know, do I want to pick the hardest thing to work on? Which typically I always end up doing, even though I tell myself I won't. This one won't be hard. I can do it. You want to try to, you know, think about, you know, how many different surfaces are there that I'm going to have to depict. And that's tricky stuff. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just block in really lightly a leaf. The other thing I wanted to mention, if you get a pastel, like these are the Richisons, I think they're pronounced. These are great, like they have beautiful, beautiful pigment to them, and they're pretty soft. They always come with these really annoying labels though. And they're smaller, so it's not like you know, you're going to use it up pretty fast. So I'm putting a lighter green down, and you can take the label off, so you can use this broad side. And don't be afraid to take the labels off all the time if you need to, because they just can really get in the way. Okay, so I'm putting that one over here. And this one, I'm gonna do a slightly darker color. And I love to use, I love to put the highlights in leaves, you know, using blues and violety colors, because it's so pretty, and it's like a reflection, you know, of the sky when when you do the leaves like that. This has got a lot of detail in here, so I probably am not going to do too much. And that's another aspect of your composition, is having areas where you have more detail and areas where you have less detail, because that will keep it interesting. So down here is a little bit of a stem. I'm going to put this in. And then another kind of green over here. Yeah. Okay, so just kind of getting this, put another dark over here. And then I think over here, I'm actually going to use some blue. Blue is great to use with orange. And so it will have a lot of, the complementaries will work really well together. Oh, more over here too. Okay. So kind of, again, using my broad brush here, because we're not going to put on any detail right now. and we're using the darkest green now. So we definitely don't want to go and do any more work on the oranges, right? Because that's going to mess up the colors.
I'm familiar with your work, and it's hard to imagine it coming from this stage being something as beautiful as the end.
I guess that's a compliment. I don't know. Is it? Okay. Well, like I said, this is just a way to kind of get it all down, and it's very loose. But there will be tons of detail that I put in that will, define it more and more as the rose that it will become. Yeah, I mean, it's a little frustrating for me sometimes too, because, you start, everybody does this. They start with a piece, at the beginning stages, and you're just like, wow, I'm no good at all. What am I doing? This is disastrous. I can't even tell. It's so bad. And then you just have to stick with it. You have to just keep going, and that's the thing about pastels too. They're very challenging, but ultimately they give you just an absolute beautiful, piece. And it's the the ability to stick with it that's going to really make the difference. And like any medium, you just really have to practice. So I was an illustrator for years, and I did a lot of work for food packaging. And I had to, I had these really pretty intense deadlines, draw 5 different stacks of pancakes, for this package line of pancake mix that's coming out. And, we want this and this and this. And so, I had to be like on it. And fortunately, one of the nice things about it was that it helped you focus, obviously. But it also, like I had, they said, buy whatever materials you want, we're fine with that. And so I got to use a lot of great materials that way, and just learn and learn and learn and learn. So it was kind of trial by fire in a way, but it was so good because I just had to do so much, pastels all the time.
Constantly overworking because you're under them.
I was under a real deadline, and then, I had people that were like, oh, I don't know, we should redraw this. It's a little too, blue, or a little too brown or something, So that was really a challenge. Okay, so this is pretty much dry already. Shazam.
Question, so when it's dry like that, will the pastel still come up, or is it set?
Come up. What do you mean come up?
If you touch it, will it still?
Oh, it's pretty set. It's pretty set. I mean, there's a little bit, but not like if it was a lot of dust. See, that's the advantage. That's the advantage of it. So, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take a few pencils and kind of just define the lines and the areas, the tight areas a little bit more. So it has a little bit more form to it, because it is sort of amorphous right now. Even though you could start to see the rose shapes, That's what I'm gonna do. And I'm probably gonna take one of my pencils, and these pencils are called Conte a Paris. And currently my favorites, imagine. And so I use also these Stabilios too. These are great. It just kind of depends. I like these a lot because they're very close to a pastel feeling, as close as I have found. They can be, with pastel pencils, they can be really a challenge to sharpen. And so I have a sharpener here that I love, this AF matte, and you can slightly, here we go. You can slightly change, the sharpening on here. And this one, it has a top that will open for any kind of a larger pencil, because a lot of times they're smaller, and so you can only get a smaller pencil in there. But this one is pretty good, and it will, if you don't try to sharpen them too sharp, you'll be okay. If you try to sharpen them too sharp, they'll break. And so, because you can't really get a pencil sharpener that's for pastel pencils. It's very hard. So anyway, but this one is the best that I've found so far. So I'm going to go in here and just using this one, I'm going to start to kind of define the shape a little bit more, because I've gotten, it's a little amorphous, as I mentioned. And then I'll be going in here with more of the pastels to start these graduations of soft color and the hard edges and the soft, curves. So you can see here, I'm just kind of like working through this a little bit.
And just by doing that, we can see the curve of that top.
Right, exactly. And we've gotten a lot of color down. I have a tendency to work from this half to this half, and I think it's because I have an eye that's stronger than the other. So I don't know why I do that, but anyway, we all have weird stuff, right? So that's the weird thing. And then like I said, I turn it around and work on it. So this is just kind of giving me a little bit more of that flower form. And then we're like this area here. Oh, sorry. That's really not my, keep wanting to show my hair off. Okay. It's off. Okay. So this rose has really great shapes in it, and I'm a big lover of shape and color. As you can tell, those are sort of the things that I love very much. And so with this now, we have this as sort of our base color. And I'm going to show you, so you can take your darker reds and oranges. Here's a good one here. Yeah, that's a similar color. Now, one thing I have not put out here, which I meant to do, is, one second. I typically have scratch paper. So I'll have a scratch paper that will help me see what it looks like. Ah, here it is, under this large box. Okay. So you have a piece of scratch paper. That's what's kind of dirty. And I just cut these for myself. And so this is a buff color. So that's going to affect your colors a little bit. And oftentimes colors will go down darker than you think. So you can give yourself an idea, okay, there's what we have. And is that what I'm looking for, right? So that's a good test. And I have a lot of these I'm working with all the time, but it's really good to give you the feel of what it's going to look like. And you can also blend it a little bit and say, oh yeah, that's great. So for instance, like on this one, if I go down here, I can start oh, I can start to build out this shape a little bit by adding this darker color, right? And this is going to help me. And then I just pull through it with usually I'm working with these two fingers quite a bit. Don't try to do it with this one because you'll get this all over everything. If you can kind of keep your two fingers here, the ones that are isolated for your blending, it will be so much better. I have students sometimes that use even their thumb and you're just like, wow, what are you doing over there? That's not really going to be helpful. Big mess, right? We're talking about the mess. Often I wear a mask too, especially if I'm putting a lot of color down on the board in the beginning of a piece. And so that's something that's important, and also to have really good ventilation. Okay, so you can begin to see kind of this part coming up. And then again, you would use your pencil here to help sharpen this edge, right? And these are this particular pencil is like very, blendable. That's what I like about it too. And you can see when you've got this underpainting, how lovely your blending can be and how nicely this will go on here. And then a texture.
Yeah, you got a little bit of texture.
A little bit, yeah, not too much, a little bit. This is 600. And like I said, I've used 800. I use 800 most of the time because it will show the most detail, right? The finer so again, I have got this for wiping my finger if I need to. Then up at the top here, I've got more pink kind of coming in that area. And so this is kind of a great color right here. And I'm going to use that up at the top to kind of show where the blossom is beginning to open up a bit. And again, this is a little bit still in the mid-range. And then I'm going to take my pencil again and go a little bit darker. And I'm going to put in here areas here where there's like an indentation in this this rose right on this side here. So I'm going to add this, starting to show where that's going to be. And it's on this corner too. So, and then anything on the surface, like a lot of times with roses, they have a lot of like very, very delicate veining in them. And I love to draw that, but you have to make yourself wait on that and not rush into it, because any sort of pattern or texture that you're doing like that can, if you got to do it after you get the main color, like the body of the color down. And so one of the ways to help with that, define that, or find that for yourself, is to kind of squint your eye, and you can see, okay, the main color of this, like right here, is going to be a lighter peachy color. And then I can see the veins through that. So I'm go back in after I get the base color right, and I can put those veins in there. Or not, if you don't want to, that's up to you. I find it's really fun to do parts of it quite detailed and other parts a little bit, more abstract or a little bit more fuzzy. And then I'll put a little bit more highlight on there just so you can see And I like to use fluorescence every once in a while, which is a little crazy, but the fluorescence can really bring a lot of life to a piece if you use them sparingly. So this, I'm going to add here just a little bit, and you'll see how that begins to kind of show you the light through the petal. You see that a little bit? Yeah, and so they're great for that with the flowers. And it's funny because, you know, you use them, and if you don't tell people that you've used any fluorescents, they won't even see them. They won't even know. But they're really fun to add kind of a beautiful glow if you're not going nuts with them. And then I have a set here I was going to show you. These are called tourges, I think, and they're wider, flatter ones like this. And so these are really fun. And so what I'll do often towards the end of a piece is I'll go back with some of these and just hit little areas to show light coming through the petals very softly. And then like this one, you know, I can incorporate it as I go too. Okay, so then looking at this too, I would probably go and then do a more heavy color down here. So maybe a darker orange. Okay, so this is the same orange. Okay, let's use a darker one. This is a little bit darker, not enough. This is where I should have spent more time last night getting my pastels out. Okay, so this is a little bit darker here. So again, this is about getting that volume in. And this is a spectrum, which is extra soft, and it gives you kind of great coverage in the beginning stages of your art. And so I like to use them. They're called extra soft, but they're actually a little bit harder. Okay, so you can kind of see here how it's moving up from darker up until this area here. And again, I'm going to go back and redefine edges with my pastels. And so I'm using a tablet here to look at some of the more detailed area. But you can see I'm putting this in. Someone's asking a question? No? Use a little bit darker pencil. Let me find. There we go. So all these little tight areas, you want to kind of go back in, and you know, as you work, you'll be doing this kind of all along. Sorry if I'm starting to mumble here. I'm just concentrating. You don't want to get like too heavy of a line because you're trying to avoid lines defining the piece as much as like planes of color. So planes of color coming together, the line is like used as the hard edge, but you want to blend that out. So it's not going to, you're not going to look at it and say, wow, that's a line there. It's really more of an edge of a shape. So you're sort of obliterating that line there. And then you can always go with your finger and sort of soften it up, right?
There's a question about the brand of the fluorescent pastel.
Oh, okay. So I've gotten different ones. This one is Diane Townsend. This kind. And then actually she has these smaller ones here too. So just caution though, don't use too much fluorescence. Go slow with those. Okay, and the blendability is really beautiful. Now, as far as like, I'll show you a little bit more about doing a highlight edge here. So I've got like this light color here, and I'm going to go in and I can do this edge here with this very light yellow, and this is going to give me a nice edge for this petal. And what you want to do is you don't ever want to make like the petal too round or too square or too, perfect. Because the petals are not perfect at all. There's a huge amount of like variation and roughness to them. And you want to capture that to give it a real authentic look and feel. So you can go in there with your finger again and kind of smudge it. And then some areas, there's a lot of petals that get hit with light that have an edge to them. So I have usually a white charcoal pencil. And the white charcoal pencil is really great at going in and really making a clean line. It's very opaque. So you can kind of go into areas and really hit it with that. And so like for this, you could hit it like right there with the opaque white, and that would help define it a little bit more. And then, let's see, what else are we gonna do? We'll go with a little bit darker in here. And this I'm not gonna do with a wash. We're finished with the wash. I'm just gonna go in and start defining the little nooks and crannies of these areas where the bud is tighter. So the goal is to kind of go in, do these little areas, and then we're going to go and try to get all of this like washy type stuff covered with pastel and more solid, so it doesn't look like watercolor. So I'm just defining again my edge a little bit and go back in there with the softer, the sky. I'll go with the sky a little bit more. And smooth that out. So with pastels, it's always about like, using the color, going back, kind of redefining it, a lot of layering, trying to get the colors just so you like them. So this you can see is starting to make a nicer shape there. This is still, the line is a little too harsh there. So I will go in and, hit that like this. You could do this with a pencil too. And then going out from there like this, you get that graduation of color. And there's a lot of it with this one. I'm gonna draw this and this image. And this rose is so pretty because it has so many like delicate little hits of color. Mhm. orange up there. Kind of fun. Some brighter orange in here. One here. And you're always thinking too about like, your positive and negative shapes. So that's another important, sort of aspect of just your overall piece of how those negative and positive shapes are working together. Are the negative shapes, let's say the sky here, are those going to be as interesting and as beautiful as your positive shapes, which is, like the rose itself. So you don't want to forget those areas because it's building the strength of your overall composition. And so, again, like with the roses, you want to make here's my orange. You want to make the little tips and stuff, kind of organic and interesting, because it will look so much more like a real petal then. And then like this one, because I have this nice wash back here, I can go in easily with this pencil and like define this edge here. It would be harder to do if you didn't have that underpainting. And then, this is not a solid edge. You've got like, more graduation of color coming in to the orange. And I'm doing that a little bit with the pencil. I'm getting a bit of dust, right? So with the dust, you want to have a paper towel or go outside. You can blow it off if you go outside, or you can just have a paper towel and kind of tap it off. So I'm putting this down here, but I'll move it. So you just, can tap it off like that. And when I'm working on my large pieces, when I have the dust filtering down, I make sure I tap it from the back a lot of times. And then that will help me, from having the color floating down, start to affect the things I'm working on. So I've got these yellow edges I'm putting in, just defining this a little bit more. And over here, so, I'm just kind of messing around, just kind of what is striking me is fun to do and work on. Now this leaf here is of course not the color that it's going to be. And I'm going to make this a little bit more of a sharper edge. Down here I have a little curve that I'm going to put in. And the underside of the petals is really fun because you'll see a lot of light coming through this area here. So I'll go back and put in a lighter color in here just because you can imagine the sun kind of coming through there. And then this edge is kind of a sharp edge here. And you could use a little bit of a darker color there. And then I'll go back to this red orange, I should say, right? And I'm trying to use a little bit more, I try to work on the middle part more than the outer part, just because again, I mean, I'll be going back into different sections, but it helps to kind of keep it under control, so you've not got a lot of powder and stuff on the outside that you're dragging your arm through. And sometimes when I'm working, I will use like a piece of glassine kind of over here, so my arm can maybe work on some detail here and not mess up the stuff I've already done. Or you can also use what's known as a maul stick. If you're familiar with the painting term maul stick, it's a stick and it has on the end of it like a ball. And so you rest it on part of the piece. You rest it like on your board, and then your hand, you hold this and your hand can go into these areas without, again, having your hand rub against the area that you're trying to work on. So this is going to be a little darker in here. This is a fun shape in here because it's got a lot of light coming through, and you'll see a lot of veining. So I'm approaching it cautiously. And there's all kinds of curves and stuff that you're just setting up. And I'm going to use this light pink color to put in some more of the highlights here on this curve. And you can see, whoops, what's that? You can see it's starting to push out a little bit. So you can see there's a little bit of a curve there, and the light is hitting it. Mhm. And right up in here, whoops.
Just a comment about your painting being much brighter than the photo.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's because we're still so much in the beginning. And the photo's dark too. So I would never have it match the printout. It's always going to be brighter than that. And then as we put more and more detail in, though, you'll see it starting to have a little bit more of the depth in there.
And can you comment on how much shading you decide to do?
How much shading?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand the question. How much shading? There'll be a lot of shading. Right now, we're still kind of working gently with the midtones, starting to see the rose come up a bit.
They're referring to like getting into the dark.
Yeah,
Dull versus brighter.
dull versus brighter. I'm not sure I understand that either. I'm sorry. To use duller colors, or what does that mean exactly? I'm not typically, I use bright colors and I use a lot of colors because that's just sort of my style. if you have a more subdued palette, let's say you want to work in a darker key, then you would use, obviously darker colors. But, as you can see, like with these oranges, these are really bright. And so that's where I'm going to go with it. But, it's up to you as the artist to always figure that out. I have done darker work with oils, more kind of a old masters kind of look and feel. That's really fun. But with the pastels, one of the things I really love is all the bright hues and things. So that's what I'm going to gravitate towards. It's just, as an artist, what's your style? What do you feel most comfortable in? But we're still very much in the beginning stages, so you're not going to see a lot of dark colors here yet.
The question has been rephrased.
Okay.
As to how you decide about making things muter.
Muter.
Yes.
I don't do it. Muter, that's interesting. Well, I mean, as I go through, I would probably, you can use the complementary color to mute. So that's always one way to kind of do it if you wanted to make something a little softer. Or with pastels, there's just a huge amount of color out there that you can find, if you wanted to use a darker, more grayed out sort of orange instead of something that's super vibrant. Those are available. Color is a little bit different than when you mix like with oil paints, because you don't really mix pastels the same way. Pastels are about layering a color, and there's a lot of colors that are already created for you. So you don't really need to think about mixing them per se like you would in oils. Does that make sense? Oils with oil paints, you mix in a lot of color all the time. And you can get things to be very, very subtle. And you can do that with pastels too, but I didn't really bring any of my gray. I mean, I actually use quite a bit of grays, especially if I'm doing like a white flower. But I didn't really use that for this palette here. Oops. So this is going to be a brighter yellow edge here. And I'm going to just blend this together with my finger a little bit more. Now I did bring some blenders to show you these. And these are like little makeup brushes or makeup applicators, I should say. And so you can use these sometimes in like really tight areas. The thing you got to be kind of careful with though is a lot of times it'll end up pulling the color off instead of blending it. So you have to like a really, really light touch with them. A lot of the application type things like this are for pan pastels. So pan pastels are described. They're in a little pan, like almost like a makeup. And you would put them on with applicators like this or like this. See this kind of one? And it's got like, this is spongy like a makeup. And you would put it on with these, so you kind of like brush it on in a way. And again, you can use these in tighter spots, and it helps you if your finger's kind of like too big to get in there for the tighter areas. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to go back in and.
So I noticed you haven't added any more alcohol. That was a little.
No, we're done with that. That's just for the underpainting part. Yeah, yeah, we're totally done with that. And I'm going to go in with a little bit darker pencil, and I'm going to define this area a little bit more because it's hard to see it. Actually, that's not really dark enough. So like for a dark area too, with the orange, it's kind of fun. Instead of like black, as a shadow, you use like a complementary color that has maybe some violet in it or blue-ish. And that's kind of a nice way to put a shadow in. The giant head.
But your hair looks really pretty.
Thank you. That's the most important thing. Your hair and your nail polish color. That's the ticket right there. Okay. Okay. You guys can see that. Then I'm gonna go in here with that hard edge, my pencil. And this you can blend again. Yeah, so there's sets, just thinking now of that last question. There's sets you can buy. You can buy a set of warm grays, and you can buy a set of cool grays. And so at Dakota Pastel, for instance, there's one brand that's called Blue Earth, and they have like velvety, wonderful pastels. And you can use those grays to soften color or, work the shadows. I have a big magnolia piece I did, and really it's an exercise in, grays and yellows because there's so much color really in white. There's, the grays are warm, they're cool over here in certain shadow areas. So, all of that you can capture with these different palettes. They're really fun to use, and it's fun to challenge yourself, to use maybe a white flower as an example. You can, to really explore all of the different colors that are in white, because there's so much there that you can start to see once you start, trying to depict it. So you can see I'm doing a little bit more detail here in the center, which is fun. And this you really have to kind of do with the pencils. You can hear how scratchy these are. And that's one of the reasons why I like them, is because they're very much like a very thin pastel instead of like a pencil. And then I'll be going back on these areas here. I'm leaving white. Again, these are going to be the highlights of the edges of the petals. So I'll be making them thinner as I go. A bit more there, just a lot of detail in here. So again, trying to make these little, dents and curves in this line, not having to be too straight, or too circly, giving it that real organic kind of feel. Always keeping that in mind. And then I'll be softening this so it doesn't look like such a dark line. This one. But this one is interesting. There's like a nice lip on this that I want to capture. And then it goes up into, kind of flips open right here.
And we can't see it. So
There we go. And this one I'm going to go back into and sort of
And when you're doing one of your large paintings, you're in there with these pencils doing this?
no, not until,
How do you-
no, no, not until the very, like, the very end, I would go back and sort of define, but this is a very small piece, compared to what I usually do. So yeah, it's different, definitely. Yeah, no. This part down here. Thank you. It's getting a little better, right? It's trying to see some Shea happening.
It almost seems like a more almost intimate form of art because you're really touching it and shaping it.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Yeah. I did, so much design and artwork and logos and websites on very cold computers, and so to me, working with pastels, it's just a wonderful experience because it's so tactile. And I also I love to knit and I love to garden. I think it's just like all of that stuff to me is very sort of wonderful, life affirming, wonderful experience. Working on computers and doing so much of that in my younger years was just such a cold medium, and it just was so kind of soul sucking. But I did enjoy it. I loved being a designer very much. But it's definitely a whole different ball game, with art. And I would say, pastels are something that I started working with when I was a pretty little kid, and I just found them, I just really had a knack with them right from the start. They were just such a fun medium for me. Let's see here. So no, that's just too dark. Of course, I don't have all the oranges I need. Isn't that impossible to think about? Like, how could you not have enough when you brought hundreds? Well, I'm going to start to go in here a little bit more. Mhm. Mhm. So in September, I'm going to be teaching a 2-day workshop in Santa Fe at the George O'Keeffe Museum. Yeah, just showing off a little bit. And very proud of myself for that. Yeah, can hardly wait. We're going to study one of her paintings that is there at the museum as sort of the jumping off point. There's I think it's a hollyhock and a larkspur. Beautiful, beautiful painting that they have there. And so that's kind of what we're going to we're going to study that a bit and then work on pieces of that ourselves. So I'm quite excited about it.
Is your class rolled up?
No, it is not. I'm going to have information on it on my website, but the dates are the 13th and 14th, I believe. It's a Friday and a Saturday. So here we have sort of a duller color going in here, this kind of buff. I'm going to put in this little crevice here. And this, I'm also going to put in a little bit of green as I build, because the light has come through it in a certain way. So it has a nice contrasty feel with some of the stronger oranges. And there's a lot of great veining and stuff that's going to go on here. But again, I'm waiting until the end to do that. And it's nice to sort of, this pink color here, I have that in other spots on the drawing. So it's nice to incorporate it in different spots, which means you don't want to go around and do it all over, because you want some areas to have a little bit more, punch than others, so to speak. And this is a kind of a punchy color, this pink, but it adds harmony, to the piece when you have similar colors that are working together. So when you look on a color wheel, you can see the colors that work, analogous colors that work nicely to develop your color harmonies. And then your complementary colors, which you can use like kind of in some of the shadows or other areas of your piece that add a lot of life again to it. Those complementary colors will add a lot. Instead of using, like I said, like a black for a shadow, which don't do that because it's very kind of deadening. And you'll find in a composition, if you have a black area, your eyes just, unless your whole picture, your whole painting is very, very dark, your eyes just going to continually go to it and think, what is that? It's like this repeat thing. And so any kind of area like that, you want to look at and think, okay, is that a little too dark? Does that make sense? How is that strengthening my composition and my painting? So it's important to think about that when you're, we stand back and look at a piece. So now I have a purple pencil here. And this one, I'm going to start to put a little bit more of this line and shadow down here. You can see. And this is an area that has got a lot of very deep color. And so using this purple as a shadow is really fun. And then I would use this up here as well in some of these shadowed areas to really bring a little bit more depth in there. This is a warm purple. And so this type of thing, like this is an edge here. And you can see I haven't like filled it out. So you would just want to make sure that when you're doing this, this edge is continuous on this a little petal here and not all broken up like that. So you can go in and start to really noodle with that edge and make sure that it looks like it should. You can just do a very soft like crossover there, going back here. Oh, sorry. I guess I just have too big of a head for demos. Her head is too big. She's a good artist, but her head is too big. Oh, I'm going to put a little bit more purple in there, like I said. So it's great to kind of sit back, you know, and look at, okay, where are my darkest areas? And really start to define those. Where are my lightest areas, but where are my really dark areas that I want to go back into and start to fill in. And you can see that starting to take shape a little bit here, especially when I'm adding the purple. Mm. Now this is too much brown there, obviously. So what we're going to do is use the pencils and go back and kind of lighten that up a bit. So there's a lot of little shading to do in here and a little highlighting. So you want to look and see, okay, where are the strongest lines, you know, squinting your eye. Okay, so we're going to move over down here a bit and add this. Mhm. Oh my God, okay, wow. Oh, that's how you know when you're having fun, when you don't know how much time is going by, because you love your art so much. Okay. No, I'm not going to finish, but I'm not really that surprised. So, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quick put a little bit more color in here. I can't believe it's gone by that fast. And then we'll work on the leaves here quickly, so I can show you how to kind of fill in the rest of it. Okay, and then I'm going to put a little more this down here. And so all your little dark nooks and crannies, define the rose, like the whirl of the rose as it unfolds. So that's what I'm doing here, is like cutting in with this color a little bit. And can start to see all that petal start to get defined. And one thing is, like when you do your wash, you don't have a whole lot of pastel dust on there. So you can't blend as well until you do. And then, so trying to, blend just against this is going to be hard. You just don't have enough kind of like powder there. So you want to just know that kind of going in, you've got a little bit of pastel going before you can start blending. People get frustrated, they're like, oh, this is not going anywhere. I can't get the pastel to actually blend, and that's kind of why. So just, kind of like you got to experiment and kind of get the feel of it. So this is a nice little shape in here. I'm going to fill in with this. And this should be here. And then I'm going to go back in with the purple. Oops. Maybe this one a little bit more define. This one. And then I'm actually going to put like a little bit of green down here. Probably seeing a little bit of light reflection from the leaves and just the opening of the flower, the petal there. Adding those colors in can really help make it look, really special. And then I've got this define a little bit more here. My purple pencil, or this is more of a raspberry color. And I'll go over that and get this rose edge. Kind of define the edge of the petal. Okay, so I'm going to just do a little bit here with my leaves and adding some fun, add some kind of more violet-y blues down here. That would be fun. And this is just kind of light coming through between the sticks and the leaves. A little bit more patterning down here. And then as far as like the leaves go too, you always have, of course, think of a leaf with the middle stem, the middle rib, I should say. And the middle rib is is really fun to work with, so much like a flower, really. And you want to kind of define that, and then that will help you in terms of depicting the leaf with the light hitting it and the ribs of the leaf. So you could use like this gray pencil here along the edge, the darker edge that you just drew, and pull that through. And then you'll see the light hitting this. I'm gonna go quick here. And this is kind of fun because it's setting up a different, pattern. And you can start to see that kind of being defined with the light. And then as far as the edges go, usually there's like a little bit of a sawtooth pattern with rose leaves. And so you wanted to pick that in the edge. I'm putting that in there like that. And, I would blend this more, obviously. And the leaves, you can define the leaves very much like you would the flower, or you can leave them somewhat abstract too, if you just want the focus to be on the flower and maybe not have the leaves take away from it. I kind of go back and forth about that, and sometimes I will do them very detailed, and sometimes I just like to leave them a little bit more interesting, just kind of depends on the way I feel the piece, what's good for the art piece. And I'm the artist, so I get to decide that. That's the good part. So this one I might make, like this area here, maybe a little bit darker altogether. And sometimes when I'm working on a board like this, I would actually, tape this edge. You wouldn't see this when you print it. When you frame it and stuff, all of this would be covered. So you can see there a little bit how I'm doing that. And then back down in this area, maybe put in a little bit darker sort of leaf. It's my background shape. And again, we're talking about the negative and positive shapes. So are those, complementing the rest of the positive shapes that you're using in the piece? And then, I'm going to go back in, and this is another leaf here. I'm going to start to define a little bit with the middle stem. Over in this area here, to the other side, we want to probably temper that down a bit, this aqua blue, and use something that's not quite as bright to mellow it out a little bit. So maybe we hit that a little bit with a blue like this. And it's kind of fun, I think, if you have a solid color as a background to sort of, give it a graduation. So you maybe go from a dark to a lighter blue. just to kind of keep it a little more interesting. Or you can give, put subtle leaf shapes in there if you want. But I like to look at it in terms of, how busy is one area versus another. And then you could come back here and hit it with this little bits of this lavender color too, if you wanted. Making this a lot darker. And then I use this dark green and I can kind of help define, again, the edge of that rose petal. So this is kind of getting a little fat in here, so I'm going to go back and use the pencil. Dark green. So how are we doing on time? Do I need to wrap it up?
About 5 minutes.
About 5 minutes, okay. Speedy Gonzalez here with my finishing up, okay. Mhm. And I'm getting a lot of dust on my fingers, so start wiping that off a little bit. So when I squint my eyes, next steps would be, just working through the darker areas, defining, just like I've been doing, only more and more, getting the more detail in there. And then for like, this is one of the lips of the petals. So we're gonna take the warmer yellow and go through this. And then, again, we don't want to create like too harsh of a line. So we could go back and very subtly, bring a little bit of that color in from the orange. And then if we're wanting to bring the white pencil, we could do like a little bit of striation type little bits like that, where you can start to see the veining in the rose. But see, this has got to come right at the end, because otherwise, this will get too mushy. So I'm going to make this a little bit more undulating, And probably looking at this would make this edge over here come in a little bit more. It's a little squarish. So I don't know if you could see that line I'm drawing right there. And then maybe fill it in with this orange. It's probably a little bit too close, but it'll be okay. And then again, go back maybe with your darker pencil, and you can kind of start to fill this in a little bit. To make that a little bit more curvy instead of straight down, just to give it like a little more rhythm. Yeah, so, lots to do. But you get the general idea. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Yes, will you fill in the whites at the bottom right? The
Fill in
background?
the white here?
The back, yeah. Are you
Oh,
gonna put
yeah.
more in
Yeah,
there?
it'll all be filled in. So you see here, I've got this patterning of blue, kind of a
Mhm.
blue-gray color. So I will be working with that some more. And then this is a leaf shape down here that I'll probably do similar to this up here. And no, but it'll be all filled in, yeah. And yeah, it'll be, the whole thing will be covered. And I would say at this point, I'm probably, maybe 30–40% finished. There's quite a bit more to do, but a lot of it, goes quickly when you put down the color, and then, you have the blending and the layering that happens that begins to really define the flower.
It was great to see my products.
Thank you guys so much. Sorry about the big head. The finished thing, I can put it on my website or I can send it to you guys. I don't know if you do that ever with the demos, but yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way it looks. I think it's coming out really, really pretty. Yeah, yeah. So orange is such a fantastic color. It's hard to go wrong with it. I love oranges and reds and very much. I love to do a lot of poppies. They're very popular with people too, but they give me an excuse to use those colors. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, very much so. Very happy. And then when I move this, I just wanted to mention, you would always want to have it in a piece of glassine, right? So it won't rub off. And I typically don't start to fix my pieces until pretty late in the game, because I don't want to sort of, flatten out the highlights or anything until I get to I use this one, Shea. And this is the best one I found. And it's the least toxic too. So, but you want to do very light coats. You can do several, but very light coats. Don't hit it too hard, because you'll start to see the spray kind of drying on there, and it will wreck the texture.
What's that called?
Shea, I think I'm pronouncing it right.
It's like SCH.
Can't see it.
Yeah. You see it on the, if I have it flat. Shmika? Yeah, I will. I'll send you a list. Yeah, I will absolutely do that. Yeah, so you can see, like I said, not a lot of high grade pastels in shops. You got to kind of look a little bit harder for them.